Another day, another hole in the fishing nets. I am forever repairing holes in the fishing nets. But I don't mind. I enjoy helping the men, and I'm no stranger to the fishing business. My name is Salome. You probably don't know me, but my name is found in the Bible. But I bet you know my husband. His name is Zebedee. He is an expert fisherman and even owns his own fishing business. I have 2 sons who are also fishermen. I am sure that you would know their names. Some people call them the Sons of Thunder. But me, I call them James and John. James and John are excellent fishermen, just like their father. And Zebedee and I thought forever that they would end up being fishermen for all of their lives. But we were wrong about that. You see, one day Jesus came to Galilee. When Jesus came to Galilee, there were crowds of people already following him. People loved to hear him teach and talk. I listened to him and I loved hearing him as well. He spoke as one having authority, not like our religious leaders. And then it happened. He came to the lake one day when James and John and some of the other fishermen were preparing their nets. Of course, the crowd was with him. It was growing every day. And the crowd was pressing in on him. So Jesus asked one of the fishermen, named Peter, if he could get in his boat and push out a little from shore and teach the people from the boat. So that's what Jesus did. He sat in the boat, in the water, and taught the people. A little while after that, Jesus went to Peter and his brother and said, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And then Jesus went to my 2 sons, James and John, and said, "Follow me." And they immediately dropped their nets and followed Jesus. They were with Jesus for 3.5 years. Everywhere that Jesus went, they went. Jesus chose 12 men to be his disciples, men that would stay with him and learn from him and see everything he did. And my 2 sons, James and John, were 2 of Jesus' disciples. Now, being the mom of 2 disciples has its benefits. I would have loved to be able to follow Jesus and see everything that he did and see the miracles that he did. But I just wasn't able to do that. But when Jesus would come and visit Galilee, James and John would come to the house and they would tell me all the stories of things that they had seen Jesus do. Well, one time, they told a story that Jesus fed more than 5,000 people with a loaf of bread and 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. More than 5,000 people. And another time, they told the story of getting in the boat with Jesus to cross the lake. It had been a long day, and Jesus fell asleep in the boat. While Jesus was sleeping, a storm picked up, and it was fierce. The disciples feared for their lives. They thought they would be thrown overboard and drowned. They woke Jesus, "Master, Master, don't you care about us?" Jesus got up and said to the wind and the waves, "Be still." And the wind and the waves immediately obeyed him. But the stories I love best of all are the stories about how Jesus loves people. There was a story about a blind man. His name was Bartimaeus. And because he was blind, he couldn't work. And because he couldn't work, he was poor. And he had to sit on the street and beg. One day, while Bartimaeus was sitting there begging, he heard the sound of a crowd coming. And he couldn't see, people around him, what's happening? And they said, Jesus is coming. And Bartimaeus stood up and started yelling, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the people around Bartimaeus said, Bartimaeus, be quiet and sit down. Jesus doesn't want to bother with you. But he screamed all the louder, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus said, bring him here. The people standing around Bartimaeus said, Bartimaeus, he's calling for you. And Bartimaeus threw off his cloak and came. They led him to Jesus. And Jesus healed Bartimaeus. Jesus didn't care that he was poor and dirty and a beggar. Jesus loved him. There was another time that Jesus was going into a town. And in that town lived a tax collector named Zacchaeus. Everyone in the town hated Zacchaeus, as they should have. He not only collected taxes from the people, but he collected too much tax. He stole from them, and there was nothing they could do. And they hated Zacchaeus. Now Zacchaeus heard that Jesus was coming to his town, and he wanted to get a glimpse of him. But being a short man, he decided to climb a tree so he could see him. So he ran ahead of the crowd and climbed up in a tree. And do you know, as Jesus passed by that tree, he stopped and he looked up and he said, Zacchaeus, you come down. I'm having dinner at your house tonight. The people that were standing around Jesus said, doesn't he know he's a sinner? Of course Jesus knew he was a sinner. But Jesus loves sinners. Then there was the time where a woman who had been sick for 12 years and no doctor could help her was in the crowd. And she had an idea. She thought, if I could just get near enough to Jesus to touch the edge of his robe, I would be healed. And she pushed through the crowd and she tried to get close, and she did. She got just close enough to touch the edge of his robe, and she was instantly healed. Jesus stopped and said, who touched me? The disciples said, Jesus, look at all these people. Everybody's touching you. Jesus said, no, I felt power go out from me. The lady knew that she had been caught. And she came trembling before Jesus, and she bowed down and she said, Lord, I'm sorry. I've been sick for 12 years, and I just knew if I touched the edge of your robe, I would be healed, and I was. And Jesus said, daughter, it's okay. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. He loved her, even though she was sick. And then there was the time when parents brought their children to Jesus so that Jesus could bless them. Children like you. And the disciples said, go on now. Jesus has important things to do. He doesn't have time for these kids. Take them home. Shame on James and John for saying such a thing. But Jesus scolded the disciples and said, you let those children come to me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus took those children and blessed them. He loves children. He loves anyone, whether they're young or old. But then the day came when we got word that Jesus had been arrested, and they were going to try to put him to death. We were already in Jerusalem for the holidays, and we ran. And there he was, on the cross. I saw him die. I saw them lay him in the tomb. How could this be? I loved Jesus. Jesus loved me. And I wanted Jesus to love me forever. I went home and I just started to cry. And my boys, James and John, came to the house. And they said, Mom, just before Jesus was arrested, he said something. We're not exactly sure what he meant, but he said, troubled. In my Father's house are many rooms, and I am going away to prepare a place for you. And if I go away, I will come back and take you to be with me forever. I didn't quite know what that meant either. But 3 days later, Jesus rose from the dead. He appeared first to Mary in the garden, and then to the disciples, and finally I saw him too. He is alive. Now I knew that Jesus has the power to love me forever. He will never leave me. He will always be here, and he has prepared a home for me in heaven. I love Jesus, and I am so glad that he loves me. I am so glad he has the power to love me forever, and I am glad that he has the power to love you forever too. I better get working on these nets.